Well, you know where we are. We're in Barcelona in Spain. Welcome to EANM TV. My name is Roy Shepherd. The annual Congress will be starting in about 4 hours for the opening ceremony, and we'll be covering all of the action over the next few days. We are live, unless of course you're watching catch-up where we are pre-recorded. And I've been reflecting with our guest today, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the guest in a moment. Been reflecting on the growth of EANM over, I think, about 12 years that I've been involved in the Congress. And back in Hamburg, about 12 years ago, there was something like just under 5,000 attendees. Last year was over 8,000, and it looks this year as though it's going to be even more than that. So nuclear medicine has gone from being a little bit of a 50-kilo weakling to being a bit of a muscular beast, really. It's grown over the years, and one of the reasons for that is that it now has much more of a say at the EU and the like. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how regulatory affairs and policy making has really helped EANM and nuclear medicine and other associated associations to build a stronger voice for what nuclear medicine is all about. And I've been joined by someone who I've interviewed countless times, Wim Oyen. He's the former president, past president of EANM, and also chair of the EANM Policy and Regulatory Affairs Council, also known as PRAC. I'll come back to you in a second. And we've also been joined by Marianne Patt, who is a member of PRAC and has got a background in radiopharmacy. Marianne, can I ask for you to start, please? And if you can pick up the microphone. Can you just give us a few examples of how the policy work that you've been doing since 2022 actually impacts the daily lives and careers of EANM members? Because a lot of people think, oh, that's nothing to do with me, but it is actually something to do with them, isn't it?
Sure, I'm happy to do so. But by chance, it was that the EU legislation on pharmaceuticals in general was revised when PRAC was founded, which is, I think, 3 years ago or something now. And at that time, it was initiated that a new pharma legislation should be issued, a new directive. And we have been involved very much with the EU Parliament members and had a thorough look at the Commission's proposal. And for example, what we achieved now is that in the new pharma directive, we will have the possibility for so-called radionuclide precursors, which are the isotopes that are used for doing radio labeling. So it's not the final medicinal product that is injected or something, but it's something that I use as a starting material to produce a radiopharmaceutical. And what we have achieved now is that we have laid the basis, the legal basis in the EU legislation that you do no longer need per se a marketing authorization for these radionuclides. It's a little bit strange, but in the EU so far it has been that you need a marketing authorization in order to be able to sell it from one side.
To be on label.
So that you can give it away to another person who has not the possibilities to produce it. And this has been now changed, that the individual member states can, for certain exceptional radionuclides, they can provide exemptions from that general law.
And how does that impact individuals working in labs, working with clients?
While I in Augsburg now, for example, I don't have a cyclotron, which means I cannot get fluorine-18 for radio labeling from a site next by, let's say, Ulm, for example. They have a cyclotron, it's 80 kilometers far away, and they could easily provide me with fluorine-18, but they were not allowed to so far.
So it's been a loosening up of the regulation, whilst at the same time giving more of a profile, if you like, for the role of nuclear medicine?
It gives a lot of more flexibility. I can do a lot of different radiopharmaceuticals now in Augsburg, which I couldn't do before. So it gives a wide broadening of the tracer palette, if you want to say like that.
So literally within 3 years, you've actually started a process of making life easier for people within the profession and within the discipline. Wim, if I can come to you, you're chair of PRAC. Why would you add a responsibility like this to your already full calendar? You're a very busy guy, so why have you chosen PRAC?
Well, the history is actually an EANM board. Policy used to be almost exclusively done by board members who rotated through, of course, with their office. And I took over from my predecessor, Christophe Muilen, who did a lot of work in Brussels. I did it, and then I realized that by handing it over to the next president without the continuity, let's say we would be reinventing the wheel all the time, while a lot of the stuff that is happening in Brussels is about continuity, about knowing people, about investing for many years, much longer than the term of a president.
Well, it's trust, basically. It's building trust and profile with those people.
People, you have to know you.
And trust you. So I'm just going back to people within the association, people who work in the hospitals all over. I mean, what do you think have been the major achievements that PRAC has managed to achieve in the last few years? Because the Commission, and I don't mean this rudely, does move at a snail's pace. It's not renowned for being a very fast-moving organisation.
That's fully correct. But let's say if you don't talk to the Commission or talk to the European Parliament, they move at snail's pace, but they may move in the wrong direction. And that is very difficult to change once decisions are made that you do not like. They may be there in effect for 20 years. So you better be there when the decision process is taking place, even if it goes slow, because if you can give gentle nudges in the right direction, or what we consider the right direction, there is a significantly higher chance that that will come into policy. And like Marianne explained, let's say we did that for radiopharmacy. We're now talking to the Commission on numerous occasions on radiation safety, on the introduction of new radiopharmaceuticals, and say it's not that they find us a nuisance. They welcome an expert opinion.
Well, that was my next question, actually, because I over the years I've got to know quite a number of lobbyists, and this is a form of lobbying, not necessarily with a commercial objective, but a lot of that work is knocking on doors, trying to get heard. How has it shifted from you knocking on their door to them knocking on your door?
Well, the EANM used to be hardly present in Brussels. We visited occasionally, but that has changed. Let's say with the council being active now for 3-4 years, professionalizing it with officers in Brussels and in Vienna. Let's say that helps a lot. So there is more continuity. There is more manpower, woman power in the support.
Knowledge as well.
And we have a lot of knowledge. Let's say we composed PRAC multidisciplinary. So we have a bunch of people who know all angles of nuclear medicine, and we are hardly ever surprised by topics coming to us, because all of them have large networks and heard things, know things, and that's how it works. So a lot of support from the office,
yeah,
and a lot of knowledge in the council.
So Marianne, give us an example of the sorts of people that you're engaging with, and why do you talk to those? So it's not just the Commission, is it? It's other associations in similar areas. So can you just give us an overview?
Yes, there are several similar associations like EANM, for example, the European Association for Hospital Pharmacists. We are in close connection and in exchange with them, because they, at least in part, they have the same regulatory issues as we have. We are dealing with radioactive material, they are not, but on the other, apart from that, it is very similar, and therefore it's quite a good exchange that we have with that society, for example.
What others?
What others? There is the European Society for Cardiovascular health. We have the what is it, ECHO, the European Cancer Organization, the European Society for Radiology. So there are a number of different associations where we have an exchange with.
Right, these are people that don't necessarily understand a great deal about nuclear medicine, and what I found that outside this growing community, there still is very little understanding of what nuclear medicine is about. What sort of perceptions are you challenging, and how are you educating people that need to understand about nuclear medicine?
Regarding policy, it is of course of utmost importance that especially the regulators have knowledge about our discipline. And if you find regulators that are just reacting to our demands, but without the explicit knowledge into the field, it becomes very difficult to come to good solutions. And there is now an initiative that aims directly at educating the regulators. And EANM is involved in that as well.
And how open are they to going back to school about it?
I don't know. It's yet in the planning phase.
I think, let's say, we should not underestimate our regulators. Say if we don't communicate with them, they have to find their sources to get their information, and that may not necessarily be the full package.
So can you give us an example of the sort of things that you'd be talking to them about? Because it still is a very abstract kind of environment.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in nuclear medicine, you know what nuclear medicine is. So what are the things that you feel that you need to get them to understand at a much deeper level?
Say the prejudice about nuclear medicine, because we handle radioactive substances, is
You're going to make me radioactive.
I'm going to make you radioactive. It's dangerous. You get cancer from the nuclear medicine procedures. Let's say all these things you hear.
So those are the wrong perceptions. I need to jump in there just in case somebody lifts that out of this recording and then says, well, look what Wim Oyen said about it. No, we're not saying that.
It's not. It's explicitly not. But we try to put the things in the right perspective.
And how do you do that?
Well, we are going to respond to policy documents that are out for consultation. So the office in Brussels picks those up, distributes them, and then we write comments. We go to meetings, we discuss in person, we sit on committees of the EU, and we try to work with them, let's say, at an earlier phase in the decision making.
I mean,
and
I know.
Engage with the tenders.
Explain that, Marianne. Explain with a tender. So
that's something I had to learn by myself in the first place as well. The EU works in a way that they define projects where they see there are problems, things that have to be changed, etc. And then they how to say, they publish so-called tenders where you can apply to.
Or a consultation document.
Yeah, like that. And then these tenders, they then must consist of different parts. It depends, of course, on the exact topic that we are dealing with. For example, we had the so-called Simpelrat tender. And there the EU Commission asked for a gremium, for a consensus or a consulting gremium that try to align the radiation protection legislation with the pharmaceutical legislation, because they were not quite congruent. Yeah? So this was a project over 2 years where we described or analyzed all the issues that are in the legislation so far, and defined best practice programs, for example, as well. We had the workshop in Brussels as well. We had a workshop with representatives from the Directorate General for Energy and for pharmaceuticals. So we are really in close contact and close exchange with
So it's much more
policymakers.
joined up than it's probably ever been in the past.
Yes, I would say so.
Have you noticed there's been a shift or an evolution of this documentation that in the past wouldn't necessarily consider nuclear medicine very much because it wasn't on their agenda, but perhaps is now being included in earlier drafts?
Yeah, so one of the things that happened is because we were and we still are, let's say, a relatively small profession that uses radiopharmaceuticals, which are different from pharmaceuticals. We use equipment that is different from other equipment, and we were just lumped together with other specialties, and say that didn't work for us. A lot that we've been working on is still the consequence of being lumped together.
A bit like being in a hospital then.
Yeah, definitely. But say we work for many issues. Let's say imaging, we're considered together with radiology. Therapy, we're considered together with external beam radiotherapy. And what we do is distinctly different. And because we're smaller than those two other societies, we have to explain why we're different and why we need a different rule set to work with, so that we can offer our technology to the patients in the most effective way and also the most cost-effective way. Say it doesn't make any sense to make a whole bunch of safeguards that cost horrendous amounts of money, and you're not protecting anyone, because if there is no risk, why should you control the risk?
But done with the best of intentions, perhaps.
Obviously, let's say nobody is out to get us, but let's say by just not knowing what it's all about, you can go on a path that you think, I have to regulate it. But if there is no risk to regulate, let's say you better not do it, because it costs a lot of money and it will hinder innovation.
You're volunteers for this, and you're dealing with an animal that has its own pace, that it has its own priorities. How much do you feel that you're making a personal impact? Because it must be quite slow, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe a bit frustrating at times?
Well, I say we like to go quicker, but say we've learned over the years that if you go much quicker than, let's say, the counterpart at the table, you may be so far ahead that they can't follow anymore.
Or they keep tripping over, and then that causes more trouble.
And so we let's say in PRAC and let's say the organizations that we have around us, we try to lead the way, but let's say not run that far ahead by depicting all kinds of wonders that we have in the future that are difficult to grasp. So we constantly need to check if our message is coming through, if we're effective. We have to pick up when we sense things that are misinterpreted or leave room for improvement, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
You just said, or you asked whether our job that we do here for PRAC isn't sometimes a bit frustrating. It is, of course, it is. But on the other hand, I have to say it is really as well kind of rewarding, because being in PRAC for me is a great chance to interact with very intelligent and people in PRAC with a lot of expertise. You get all the information of things that going on from the first hand. Yeah? So you are always on top of the news, so to speak.
Ahead of the curve, I think is the expression.
Yeah. So this is really something I like about the work. Huh? So and when you see that you have achieved something and you find it finally written in the new directive, in the new law, then it's something that we really say, wow, that was great. Yeah?
All right. How many more volunteers would you like to get involved in it, and why should anyone perhaps younger in their career, why should they decide policy? That's where I need to go. Not the sexiest of topics on the surface.
No, it's not Nobel Prize winning science, but say you can turn it around. If you think that being a good clinician and a good scientist, let's say, will make the difference for your profession, it's not. Because, let's say, there are tons of people within the profession who congratulate themselves that they're great. But the people outside have to recognize that we contribute something significant to healthcare. And let's say that is what it's all about in policy, is that we want the outside world to understand what we're doing, that we are regulated fairly and appropriately, and that we are acknowledged for what we're doing. And by just staying on the inside of nuclear medicine, you will not be able to achieve that. So policy is a lot outward looking and not preaching to the already converted.
Well, Marianne, you were talking about, meeting high caliber people. Actually, I want to ask him, in terms of the network that you build in your career, how important is that?
Well, it's the network is really important. When I started after my presidency, collating the PRAC, I trusted people from my network to join me in solidifying the policy work in EANM. And lo and behold, all the people that I asked to join for the first PRAC are still on board. Nobody left. So apparently, the group, the multidisciplinary group of people who themselves have networks, who have a lot of knowledge on their subsets of nuclear medicine, they feel that by working together and by combining the knowledge, you can really make a difference.
So isn't it funny then that the internal level of trust was fundamental to establishing a firm foundation for PRAC, in order then for you to develop deeper trusting relationships at places like Brussels, to really grow that focus of influence, if you like?
Oh, that's definitely the case. Brussels is it's full of meetings, and we're just a handful of people, to a handful of people. And you go to meetings all the time, you're in TCONs all the time. You're in 10 meetings, nothing happens. You skip the 11th, and they make a decision. So we
now that
together,
resonated.
we together have to cover it. And you can only cover it if you know that the persons with you on that committee take their fair share of the
Okay,
load.
let's do the recruitment plug now. So if there are people at the Congress who think, I wouldn't mind finding out a little bit more about getting involved on the regulatory and policy making side, what can they do at the Congress?
First of all,
the first thing to do is to hand the microphone to Marianne.
I will do that
because she was about to do that.
First of all, you should come to the policy sessions.
Okay.
I think it's tomorrow.
Tuesday.
Tuesday? Oh, sorry.
Right.
Tuesday. So it's one session in the morning, and there's one session in the afternoon. So that's the first thing to do.
Right.
Then you can scan a lot of QR codes over there in the EANM.
Over there, meaning in the foyer of the Congress Hall.
Exactly.
There's somewhere called the EANM Village.
Yes.
That hasn't opened formally yet, but there are all sorts of QR codes on there.
So that's something that you can do, and in any case, you can always contact people from PRAC and demonstrate or show your interest
and commitment, etc.
Yeah.
So what would you like to add to that?
Next to the regular symposia that we're having for a couple of years now, there is a policy workshop organized on Monday that is fully booked, so people cannot just show up and run in. But that is specifically designed by the EANM office, by Amelie and Mirka, to bring policy closer to the professionals, to the young professionals. And I say we would be over the moon if people want to come along with that journey of PRAC and start getting involved at a relatively young age, because it takes quite some time to get into it. And we need all the help we can get, but it's not something that you write a few papers about and then you're an expert. It's you have to start educating yourself. Yes,
it's a marriage, not a date.
Of course, you can say that.
I see that the two policy symposia are entitled, if I can read these, From Policy to Patients, Building Readiness for Nuclear Medicine, that's one, and the other one is the growing role of health technology assessment, HTA, in nuclear medicine, implications in light of the new EU HTA regulation. Not exactly a Netflix title, but
Nope.
something that will tell you exactly what's going on. What other opportunities do you think there are for people to get involved outside the Congress and further into the future?
Well, we decided that we're expanding PRAC by, let's say, not by making the group of experts necessarily larger, but by starting to establish working groups, task groups that tackle specific topics. So HTA is one of them. And we have one on cardiovascular health, because cardiovascular health is the next topic of the Commission that is going to get similar attention as cancer did in the past couple of years. So we're working with these project groups that we tackle the topics that are necessary to give a more deeper content-wise attention, and that is something that we as PRAC, as the Council cannot do. Is that we cannot dig deep into every specific topic, and the working groups that we establish can and should. And that is where young people can come in.
So get involved in the project groups then.
Oh yeah, that's if you're interested in cardiovascular health and you have a bit of a track record there, that you know your things. Let's say these are the places where you can learn about policy, where you can learn that having a lot of deep knowledge and content doesn't necessarily mean that you get things done in the way that you want them done. So you get trained on the other side of the coin, is that others think that you're doing a good job and are going to help you promote nuclear medicine.
Right. Marianne, what other sort of calls to action would you encourage people to get involved in? How would you like people to get more involved?
I'm just thinking about something different.
I hope it's not about dinner tonight.
No, as well. But Wim, what about if we would establish a list of people who would volunteer to work within the project groups of PRAC? I don't think that we have something like that so far, where just people could send their name and declare their interest, and then we could have, for when we have to form the next project group on something, health technology assessment, for example, we could have a look at our.
Where would they do that?
Well, that's just something that we are just trying to.
I'll say we are always open to people volunteering to do some work. And volunteering to be part of our effort, and so the office is the EANM office is the office's portal of entry. Say don't email us directly. Say that
on top of everything else that you have,
a big chance that it will not end up on the right desk. But say if you get in touch with the office, let's say they will find a way. But we, on the other hand, let's say we leave a lot of leeway for the chairs of these project groups to establish their own groups to work with. So if they have sort of a database that they can tap into to identify people, I think that would be great.
All right. Marianne, thank you very much. Wim, thank you very much indeed for joining us
You're
and
welcome.
explaining exactly what's going on. It's creating the future for nuclear medicine and establishing its position within the EU and wider. Before we finish, seeing as you've got the microphone, very, very briefly, we are live. Could you just explain very briefly how you got here today? Because you have had He has had the most unbelievable journey to get to Barcelona today. Very briefly, we don't have a lot of time.
Well, I'll say it was, let's say, the usual thing when I travel for EANM. Let's say my first flight at 6:30 got cancelled, and then I was rebooked. And because of the weather condition in Amsterdam, they kept postponing flights. And the one flight I was on to Barcelona was the one that was continuously postponed. While all the other flights were leaving, the flight to Barcelona was still stuck at the gate. So,
and in Munich there was an incident as well. Did that affect you? There was a drone alert going on at Munich airport as well. So it's all happened today.
Yeah, but we got here, so that's
did.
the most important.
And I really hope you enjoy the Congress. Thanks for joining me today. That is it from me for today. As I say, we've been live here in Barcelona. If you're still on your way here, I hope you have a far less eventful journey than Wim did. And I hope you have a fantastic Congress. I'll see you next time.